The St. Lawrence River is a large river in the middle latitudes of North America. The St. Lawrence River flows in a roughly northeasterly direction, connecting the Great Lakes with the Atlantic Ocean and forming the primary drainage outflow of the Great Lakes Basin. It traverses the Canadian provinces of Quebec and Ontario, and is a part of the international boundary between Ontario, Canada, and the U.S. state of New York. This river also provides the basis of the commercial St. Lawrence Seaway. Geography. The St. Lawrence River begins at the outflow of Lake Ontario and flows through Gananoque, Brockville, Morristown, Ogdensburg, Massena, Cornwall, Montreal, Trois-Rivières, and Quebec City before draining into the Gulf of St. Lawrence, one of the largest estuaries in the world. The estuary begins at the eastern tip of Isle d'Orléans, just downstream from Quebec City. The river becomes tidal around Quebec City. The St. Lawrence River runs 3,058 kilometers from the farthest headwater to the mouth and 1,197 kilometers from the outflow of Lake Ontario. The farthest headwater is the North River in the Mesabi Range at Hibbing, Minnesota. Its drainage area, which includes the Great Lakes, the world's largest system of freshwater lakes, is 1,344,200 square kilometers, of which 839,200 square kilometers is in Canada and 505,000 square kilometers is in the United States. The basin covers parts of Ontario and Quebec in Canada, parts of Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Vermont, and Wisconsin, and the entirety of the state of Michigan in the United States. The average discharge below the Saguenay River is 16,800 cubic meters per second. At Quebec City, it is 12,101 cubic meters per second. The average discharge at the river's source, the outflow of Lake Ontario, is 7,410 cubic meters per second. The St. Lawrence River includes Lake St. Louis south of Montreal, Lake St. Francis at Salaberry de Valleyfield and Lac St. Pierre east of Montreal. It encompasses 4 archipelagos: the Thousand Islands chain near Alexandria Bay, New York and Kingston, Ontario, the Hochelaga Archipelago, including the island of Montreal and Isle Jacques, the Lake St. Pierre Archipelago and the smaller Mingan Archipelago. Other islands include Isle d'Orléans near Quebec City and Anticosta Island north of the Gaspé. It is the second longest river in Canada. Lake Champlain and the Ottawa, Richelieu, Saguenay, and St. François rivers drain into the St. Lawrence. The St. Lawrence River is in a seismically active zone where fault reactivation is believed to occur along late Proterozoic to early Paleozoic normal faults, related to the opening of Iapetus Ocean. The faults in the area are rift-related and are called the St. Lawrence Rift System. The St. Lawrence Valley is a physiographic province of the larger Appalachian Division, containing the Champlain and Northern Physiographic Section. History. Though European mariners, such as John Cabot, the brothers Gaspar and Miguel Corte-Real, and Alonso Sanchez in the 15th century and the Norse 500 years still earlier, explored the Gulf of St. Lawrence, the first European explorer known to have sailed up the St. Lawrence River itself was Jacques Cartier. At that time, the land along the river was inhabited by the St. Lawrence Iroquoians. Donnacona, an Iroquoian chief, had 2 sons who helped Cartier explore the area during his second trip to Canada in 1535. As Cartier arrived in the estuary on St. Lawrence's feast day, he named it the Gulf of St. Lawrence. The St. Lawrence River is partly within the U.S., and as such is that country's 6th oldest surviving European place name. The earliest regular Europeans in the area were the Basques, who came to the St. Lawrence Gulf and River in pursuit of whales from the early 16th century. The Basque whalers and fishermen traded with indigenous Americans and set up settlements, leaving vestiges all over the coast of eastern Canada and deep into the St. Lawrence River. Basque commercial and fishing activity reached its peak before the Armada Invencibles disaster, when the Spanish Basque whaling fleet was confiscated by King Philip II of Spain and largely destroyed. Initially, the whaling galleons from Labord were not affected by the Spanish defeat. Until the early 17th century, the French used the name Rivière du Canada to designate the St. Lawrence upstream to Montreal and the Ottawa River after Montreal. The St. Lawrence River served as the main route for European exploration of the North American interior, first pioneered by French explorer Samuel de Champlain. Control of the river was crucial to British strategy to capture New France in the 7 Years' War. Having captured Louisbourg in 1758, the British sailed up to Quebec the following year thanks to charts drawn up by James Cook. British troops were ferried via the St. Lawrence to attack the city from the west, which they successfully did at the Battle of the Plains of Abraham. The river was used again by the British to defeat the French siege of Quebec under the Chevalier de Reilly-Écoute-Vis in 1760. Because of the virtually impassable Lachine Rapids, the St. Lawrence was once continuously navigable only as far as Montreal. Opened in 1825, the Lachine Canal was the first to allow ships to pass the rapids. An extensive system of canals and locks, known as the St. Lawrence Seaway, was officially opened on 26 June 1959 by Elizabeth II and President Dwight D. Eisenhower. The Seaway now permits ocean-going vessels to pass all the way to Lake Superior. During the Second World War, the Battle of the St. Lawrence involved submarine and anti-submarine actions throughout the lower St. Lawrence River and the entire Gulf of St. Lawrence, Strait of Belle Isle, Cabot Strait from May to October 1942, September 1943, and again in October and November 1944. During this time, German U-boats sank several merchant marine ships and 3 Canadian warships. In the late 1970s, the river was the subject of a successful ecological campaign, originally responding to planned development by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. The campaign was organized, among others, by Abby Hoffman, resident whales, beluga whale, sperm whale, minke whale, fin whale, blue whale, northern bottlenose whale, northern Atlantic right whale, bowhead whale, North Atlantic gray whale, humpback whale. Works. The St. Lawrence River is at the heart of many Quebec novels, poems, and songs, and André Gagnon's Le Saint Laurent. The river was the setting for the Canadian television drama series Seaway. The river has also been portrayed in paintings, notably by the Group of Seven. In addition, the river is the namesake of St. Laurent Herald at the Canadian Heraldic Authority. In 1980, Jacques Cousteau traveled to Canada to make 2 films on the St. Lawrence River and the Great Lakes, Cries from the Deep and St. Lawrence, Stairway to the Sea. St. Lawrence River in art. The Italian painter Vittorio Mille dedicated several works to the St. Lawrence River.